Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. Welcome to Wednesday Devo videos with me, Paul Gordon. I get to serve as the pastor of Terra Nova Church. And every Wednesday, we put out these Devo videos, and my hope in them is quite simple. I hope to share with you Jesus. I hope to help you, encourage you with faith in Him, and I hope to encourage you also towards good works for Him through these weekly videos. This past week, my regular reading plan through the Bible, mostly everyday reading plan, had me going through the book of Ephesians, which is one of my favorite books in the New Testament. It's a letter the Apostle Paul wrote to a group of brand new believers in the city of Ephesus. And there's a collection of verses across the first 4 chapters that kind of collectively caught my attention. So that's what I want to share with us today. You can read the book of Ephesians. It's 6 chapters, by the way. It'll take you every bit of 30 minutes to read through the entire thing. And so I would encourage you to do that. It's a really good book. But here's the 4 verses that I want to collectively put together for us today. There's one verse out of each of the first 4 chapters. Ephesians 1 verse 7 says this: in Him, that's referring to Christ, so in Christ we have redemption through His blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses, according to the riches of His grace. Chapter 2, verse 7. So that in the coming ages He might show the immeasurable riches of His grace in kindness towards us in Christ Jesus. Chapter 3, verse 8. To me, and this is the Apostle Paul, so to Paul, though I am the very least of all the saints, this grace was given, to preach to the Gentiles the unsearchable riches of Christ. And then chapter 4, verse 7. But grace was given to each one of us, according to the measure of Christ's gift. It stood out to me as Paul seems fixated on communicating to the believers in Ephesus this truth about the economy of God's kingdom, that the mercy, the forgiveness, the kindness, the grace in Christ is rich. It is immeasurable. It is unsearchable. It is like this vast sea of grace that He has at His disposal. It's limitless. It's beyond our comprehension. It's beyond our ability to exhaust that sea of grace. That's what Paul seems fixated on trying to communicate to the people in Ephesus and also to us. And so for me, by the time I got to chapter 4, verse 7, and when it starts out, the first half of the verse says, but grace was given to each one of us, right? Like there's this, my intuition is to finish that sentence that grace is given to each one of us based on the measure of our sin, or how frequently I return to sin. That's how much grace I need. But that's not how Paul finishes the sentence. He says, but grace was given to each one of us, not anything according to me, but according to the measure of Christ's gift. Grace is not given to us based on the measure of us, but it's based on the measure of Christ and His grace, that immeasurable, unsearchable, vast sea of grace. And so when we read that, we can feel the warmth and we can feel the welcome. And yes, we can even feel the scandalous nature of it, but the warmth and the welcome of this idea. No sinner, me included, you included, anybody included, no sinner can out-sin the grace of Christ. Not because our sin isn't great, but because His storehouse of grace is far greater. He is far better than we are bad. And we may inwardly tell ourselves, my sin is too grave, I've sinned one too many times. But in reading a book like Ephesians, and reading it collectively, and hearing Paul just continually pour out this idea of how vast and expansive the grace of Christ is for us, we can step back and remind ourselves and tell ourselves, no one can out-sin the grace of God. None of us can do more wrong than He can forgive. And so with confidence, we can say we are redeemed, we are forgiven, we are loved. And not because our good is good enough, not because our bad isn't bad enough, but because his gift of grace is great enough. That's really all I have for you today. If you are watching this and you don't consider yourselves a follower of Christ, I want you to really soak in that idea of how vast the sea of his grace is. And for those who are following Christ, I want to just remind us that delight in our Christian faith is not found in finding the goodness within us, but it's found in focusing on the abundant riches of grace found in Christ. Have a great day, everybody. Any questions on this? Any questions on any of these Devo videos? Anything about Terranova Church? Whatever you may want to chat about, please feel free to email me, paul@terranovachurch.org. Love you all. Can't wait to see you soon.